If you're building or remodeling, having good Wi-Fi needs to be thought about before you break ground in construction. On this video today, we're going to talk about the differences between amateur and pro-grade Wi-Fi. You know, most people just rely on the cable guy, let's say, to set up their house after they move in, and that's a giant mistake. They're going to put amateur-grade equipment in, and it's probably not going to work very well. So in the build show today, we're going to go out to California, where master electrician CJ Nielson with CNC Electric is going to walk us through the difference between amateur equipment and pro equipment and really help you to understand what you need to know before you break ground. With that being said, home Wi-Fi basics, let's get going.
Hey, thanks, Matt. Let's just jump right into what we're talking about here today. Home Wi-Fi basics. I think that it's an often overlooked topic when we're building these houses. Oftentimes the architect's not really putting much time into this unless he's a techie. The homeowners go both ways. They might be really tech savvy and know what they want, or they're on the other end of the spectrum and they have no clue what they need or what they want. So I'm just going to try to breeze over three real basic options that you'll see quite a bit when it comes to Wi-Fi, and it comes to Wi-Fi in your home. So let's jump in. All right, number one thing to consider or to look into when you're building a home and you're going to go sign up for internet is who are your ISP providers in your area. So that's your internet service provider. You'll hear names like Xfinity and Google in Texas, and it depends on where you are in the world. Someone's going to be selling you internet, and it's not all the same. So one of the quicker ones that we see a lot that I'm jealous of that we don't have in our area yet is fiber optics, a line on the ground that just transmits speeds much quicker than our traditional copper or coax in the ground, where you'll hear high-speed cable, or you all remember that dial-up internet where we were using a phone line in the early 90s of AOL, where you'd have to use your phone line for the internet modem. But data speeds is what you're going to be paying more. So the more you pay, usually the faster the internet is. So once you call your internet service provider, they're going to come out and they're usually going to sell you a plug-and-play setup or offer you a plug-and-play setup. And it's going to be in a combination of a router, which they need to transmit their signal into, and it'll duplicate as a Wi-Fi router, where this will spread a signal in a radius. Every one of them is a little different, but maybe for a small apartment, that's enough. Because I'm going to show you behind us, I got a little drawing of a house, and I'll kind of show you how that works. Option two, you'll see these at like Best Buy or Amazon or any of your box stores, is a mesh network. So what you do with a mesh network is you still need your internet service provider modem, and then you'll grab, every setup's a little different, but there usually are little tabletop units that require 120 volt power. You plug this in, you plug one in to the home base, and then you add them in rooms that are within the design radius. They'll tell you on the specifications, within 50 feet. And what this will do is start duplicating that signal and spreading it throughout the house a lot more evenly. So I'll do a quick visual. Is your ISP Empo, let's fix it S, your internet service provider, and then Empo is your main point of entry. That line will come in off your street, usually the corner of your house. And then somewhere in your house usually is a cable running if it's existing. But you at least need one line into a central location, probably a TV cabinet or an office. And then that's where the cable guy will stop. He'll be like, hey, I'll plug this bad boy in. Now you have internet, and now you have Wi-Fi. But again, these have radius limits. So when that Wi-Fi starts transmitting the signal, I'll just do a real generic bubble. This is our radius of where we'll have good Wi-Fi. But once you're outside of that bubble, because you're getting further and further away from this guy, your signal starts dropping down. And you'll notice in the bigger house, we've all done it, or you're at a hotel and your Wi-Fi bars downs are way down to 0 or 1. It's because you're so far away from the nearest access point for your phone to see it. So maybe you're over here. Well, again, with the mesh network, you can start adding these, but the downside to these is you do need power, and you do need to find somewhere for this to live. So it's got to live outside on a table or in a cabinet, but it's got to go somewhere, and it's got to need power. But you can quickly recreate that signal with this mesh network And what you want them to do is start overlapping. So maybe you put one in the dining room and these bubbles will start overlapping. And think of them as a floodlight as you're walking through and that beam of light stops. That's where that signal kind of dies off. So you start adding these mesh networks and you can really get a nice network going with a mesh network system. Maybe you need 4 or 5 in this house. And again, the technical stuff, we're not gonna dive into because this stuff gets really nerdy, but we're gonna cover a lot of home automation on the Build Show. And we'll dive into designing a Wi-Fi network on another video. This is just broad overview. So mesh network, your ISP, Wi-Fi router, level 1, level 2. And then we start getting into the pro grade stuff. This is what I would recommend if you were building a house new from scratch. Comes with a couple different components, but the advantage of this is like consumer grade and this is professional, where these network requirements, again, we don't want to get too nerdy, will really start needing more bells and whistles to really keep up with depending on what you're doing in your house. More computers, distributed audio, surveillance. I mean, there's so many things, guys, that need Wi-Fi now. And again, when you get to the end of your build and you don't have that Wi-Fi signal out by your pool equipment, so your pool panel can't talk to your Wi-Fi router. Yeah, that's a thing. Hot tubs, exercise equipment, just everything needs Wi-Fi. So the robust system consists of a few different pieces of equipment. Oftentimes you'll see these in what we call AV racks, a nice commercial grade glass door where all this equipment lives real nicely, or you could set it on a shelf, but we're talking pro grade. So these are just a few basic components. Is you'll have your router, and sometimes these routers come with different options. Dual WAN is kind of cool. You can have 2 ISPs feeding into that rack, so if one goes down, it'll automatically switch to the other. Huge feature of pro grade stuff. But these consist of the router, and then this is a switch. You can see on the back of this switch, we have a bunch of outputs. And what these outputs are doing is they're going to go out to different pieces of equipment. And one of the backbone of a wireless access point system, like a professional grade Wi-Fi system, is these access points. And they come in all different shapes and sizes, indoor, outdoor, different outputs. But what they do is they actually mount to a ceiling or a wall, and they're provided, which is this is kind of a cool inside tech thing when it comes to installation, is it only needs an RG6, Cat6, Ethernet cable, and it plugs into here. And then this, again, you can buy this in rolls and terminate your own end. You can buy this in 1,000-foot rolls and run cable throughout the house. And all of these wireless access points only need one of these. And we don't need power with these because technology, some smart guy out there created PoE, and PoE is power over Ethernet. So these are actually powered. Optionally, you can power them with 120 volts. But if you have a switch with PoE rated outputs, you can power these wireless access points all throughout your house with simply running one cable back to home base. And then this, again, will create, we have one in the bedroom closet, we have one in the dining room, we have one in the kitchen, and then we get this real consistent Wi-Fi all built into the house where you don't have to ever have anything sitting on the countertops. These blend in really good in the ceiling. But again, while you walk through that house, you have really good data speeds. You're not dropping off or having bad zones if it's designed correctly. And again, we'll go into a video about designing one of these systems. The other advantage is, like I said, we have outdoor rated versions of these. So again, the basic 3 components of a setup like this is your switch, where all your cables route to, your modem, which feeds from your internet service provider and gives this switch. And these switches come in all sorts of configurations. You have multiple switches. Again, gets really techy. And all your other equipment can be fed off this. And then the other advantage to this too is not everything in your house has to be Wi-Fi. I know most of the televisions and stuff we buy are Wi-Fi based, but you can also use this switch to route data cables to equipment that is gonna live there forever. If you get a hard wire to it, if you get a single cable per television or printer or computer with a jack, you're gonna get a lot better speeds. You're still gonna need your Wi-Fi for communication and wireless devices and things that are not plugged into the wall, but another huge advantage. And then scalability, right? When we're building houses from 3,000 square foot up to 30,000 square foot, these systems are gonna start maxing out and you're gonna need to go something more pro grade. So again, real basic overview of a few options. Our traditional ISP, provided by the internet service provider, modem / Wi-Fi router, your mesh network that'll take this signal and start duplicating it, and then a real pro grade modem, switch, and wireless access point setup. So let's jump out in the field and let's talk about this stuff, how it actually is in a house. And I'm going to show you a few things to consider when you're building a Wi-Fi system for your house. All right, guys, we were in the office / shop, and now we're out in the field. This is actually a house that we are just wrapping up. They're just approaching final inspection, final cleanup. But I wanted to show you this house because it's one of the ones that has quite a bit of technology in it. And when we're talking about Wi-Fi, a couple factors, right, we talked about earlier in the office was out of the box, ISP provider will give you a modem and a Wi-Fi router. And this is like a 3,500 square foot house, multi-level, so we got an upstairs and a downstairs, and a lot of obstructions. And so when we're talking about one of those routers, it's not gonna be enough for you. You're gonna have it downstairs, and you're probably gonna have a pretty good signal in one area of the house. So then, like I said, option 2 was a mesh network, which again, we're getting these repeaters, and we're plugging that into the modem, and then we're gonna plug these in throughout the house. Again, downside to these, they're not as robust, so there's limitations. We'll go into that in detail on another video, but the limitations are just the more stuff you have, the less things these can do. You can't go deep into the settings and manipulate them if you have some equipment that might need certain network settings. And then also you're gonna have to figure out where to put this thing. And so when you got an ultra custom house like this, like you just built it, why do you wanna have one of these sitting on the window ledge, or you gotta strategically place them throughout the house? So I wanna take you around, and I'm gonna show you the system that it has. That's that pro grade version with wireless access point to get rid of these, and let's go check it out. We're plugging. All right, home Wi-Fi design. So I'm gonna show you real quick. This is a pretty big custom home, multi-level. We're trying to get away from having to use a mesh network. Again, plug and play, consumer grade, you can go pick one of these up, but this is a brand new house, and so it was approached a little differently, and this is where we use these wireless access points. This is actually pre-wired by a specialty contractor, AV specific. It's a company that we've worked with a lot, Sync Systems, and they specialize AV integration, but your electrician might do it. Again, it just depends on where you are and what you're working with, but this is a closet that is a hybrid laundry room. And these aren't the ugliest things by any means, but the advantages of these wireless access points is, again, they're powered over Ethernet, PoE, and that's getting its power and its data link to broadcast this Wi-Fi system, or this Wi-Fi network, evenly throughout your house, so that when you're walking through this house, or you're in the master bedroom, or you're on the back patio, that you have Wi-Fi everywhere, including downstairs. And so this is a great location. They definitely took some time in this design. Is if you don't have to see these, again, they do look like a smoke detector, not the end of the world. A closet's a great option to locate, and you can see up there, wireless access point, different model than the one I have in my hand, but a great location, right? Closets. So when you're looking at that blueprint and you're figuring out the radiuses and what system you're working with and how far those access points will broadcast, it's consideration, but I love hiding them in a closet. Let's go downstairs, and I'm gonna actually show you the mechanical room, the ideal scenario for me and location-wise. All right, so we're talking Wi-Fi basics. Again, there's so much to cover when you're talking technology. It gets a little overwhelming. I'm really just showing you the broad overview of why you kind of want to go an access point-based, more robust pro-grade Wi-Fi system. And we haven't talked about data speeds. We haven't talked about why you need more powerful or better broadcasted Wi-Fi. A lot of factors will play into that. It'll be like, how much technology are you using? What are your data speeds? What do your data speed demands, you know, how many TVs, how many people are on the network. Just like anything else, the more you add to the network, the busier it'll get. But this is a great example of a home that was thought about prior to technology was a really big consideration in this home. And when we're talking technology or any equipment, it's nice to have a place to put it. So let's come back in this mechanical closet. I'm going to show you kind of the command central for this network. All right, guys. We're in my favorite part of, I've said it on so many videos, is the mechanical space. This is like space I beg for at the beginning of a project because you can see we got a lot of stuff going on here. We actually have some videos on mechanical space, but this is basically where everything lives. We got batteries and panels, but this is what we're talking about. We're talking about Wi-Fi. We're not talking about this stuff. We will though. So when I was talking about these access points throughout the house, again, it's going to be dictated by the size of the house and the levels and the building material. Depending on if you have concrete to get through, you're going to need more access points, stucco. So all that stuff factors in. But when I'm talking about these access points, coming back to one central location, this is it. This is a pretty mild version. You can definitely get bigger. This is a pretty mild version. You can definitely get bigger racks. They come in all different kinds of configurations, but when I'm talking AV rack, this is it. These guys did a great job on this install too. So you can see right over here that we have a big trunk line of cabling going out. And each one of these is that Cat 6 wire I was talking about. And each one is a home run, being point A, and then it goes up to point B. So there's one in the closet, there's one in the pantry. There's, you know, depending on the design, each one of these cables goes to a certain access point. So that's the Wi-Fi portion of it, but data does come in different versions, right? It doesn't mean everything needs to be wireless. If you can have a hard wire going to a television or a permanently installed device that's gonna need data forever, if you can get it off that Wi-Fi system, your hardwire connection is gonna be a lot better. So I can't preach this enough. Pre-wiring, even for future, is so important. This data cable is relatively inexpensive compared to high voltage and lighting and power. So more cable, the better. You coil them up for future in locations that you might be adding equipment or just maybe something changes in the future. But you can see it goes back. This is a caster mounted freestanding rack that all these come in. And then when we were talking about in the office, this is our switch that all these cables, and you can see they're nicely labeled out to each location. So we have camera locations that are hardwired. We have access points. See, AP laundry, that wire goes up to that laundry room. And basically what this is doing is it's taking the ISP, which here is Starlink. We're actually out on the coast and we get pretty good data speeds with the satellite Starlink. And then the router, and we also have these watt boxes that are pretty cool, where every device that can live inside this rack, and these shelves are configurable. If you had amplifiers for your distributed audio, or in this case, a DVR for surveillance, all of this is customizable. So you can get these racks much taller, you can get them in different dimensions, but you can see it's nice central location for everything to go back to. If you ever have to reset anything, you're not crawling through, you know, cabinets or attics. It's nice to put this in a central location. And again, protected by dust is pretty awesome. All right, guys, so that's kind of the high level when we're talking Wi-Fi options. Again, you could get torched on social media for technology because it moves so quick. This is broad overview. Again, your traditional ISP provided modem / router that you can get from your internet service provider, or that mesh network system that's plug and play. Great option for remodels. Data speeds can be pretty quick depending on the equipment you get. Again, you're gonna have to plug those modules in and leave them throughout the house, or doing the access point based system where, like I said, it's much more robust, it's much more flexible. There's so many things that need different configurations, and with a pro grade setup like this, you're just gonna have a lot more options. All right, so that's kind of wrapping up our broad overview, home Wi-Fi basics. I mean, when I'm talking basics, this stuff gets so much more complex. I can't wait to make more home automation videos because it's a topic we haven't really talked a lot about on the Build Show. So stay tuned for a lot more videos. And let's go back to Matt. Thanks, man.
CJ, awesome job, man. I really appreciate the basics. I think this was a fabulous video. Guys, if you're not already following CJ, go check him out on Instagram, and of course, go watch his videos on Build Show Network. With that being said, guys, if you're not currently a subscriber, hit that subscribe button below. We've got new videos here every Tuesday and every Friday. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on the Build Show.